Hi. I was going to make a video about the process I went through getting diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So, I guess just sharing my story, I don't know. Anyway, so for me, it was some shortness of breath. So, I had for the last like 4 months been experiencing some like shortness of breath when laying flat. I just attributed it felt like it was like wheezing, kind of inspiratory stridor. It's like a wheeze noise when you're breathing in. But I assume maybe it was asthma or maybe I was having allergies from a new house I moved into. Went to my doctor, tried like the albuterol and the Qvar for the steroids, and it didn't really seem to help, which makes sense. So I was on ICU working, and a few days I was like, man, I really need to go get a chest x-ray. There's a spot on my left lower back where if I would talk or cough, you could feel like what's called tactile fremitus. You could feel vibrations on my lower back where my lung is. And finally one night I kept for about 5 days before I was getting diagnosed. Around like 6 p.m. every day, I would get like fevers, chills, just feel terrible. And I've been going to the gym every day, and one day I got there and I started to get on the treadmill, and like the day before I ran 2 miles at a pretty good like pace, like I think like 8 minutes 30 seconds, which it was getting harder, but I was still just pushing through. I had a little bit of chest pain, but I'm like, oh, it's probably anxiety. Everything's always anxiety. But anyway, this day, I think it was on Friday, I just was really, really cold, so I went in the hot tub, sat for a while. I think it made me feel better. Went home, went to work the next day, and at the end of the day, I was just wiped. So I was like, I think today's the day we gotta go either to the ER or I've gotta go to urgent care, get an x-ray. Thinking maybe I had like a mucus plug, some walking pneumonia or something. I go to the urgent care. Um, the guy is kind of a dick. He's like, so you've been, he asked me if I've had any fevers or chills. I was like, yeah, I mean, subjective fevers. And he's like, well, why haven't you taken your temperature? I was like, because I'm busy. I work on ICU, and it's a PA. Nothing against PAs, but he's just, why haven't you taken your temperature? And I was just trying to explain to him it's busy, and he's like, I worked in an ER. And I was just like, well, it's just not like that. Like, you're rounding on patients, and he was just, didn't want to give me an x-ray, and I was like, just give me the x-ray. And so he gave it to me, had me head back to the room, then calls me out to look at the x-ray. And I see it, and here, I'll show you a picture of it. So yeah, the cardiac silhouette, or the whole thing, it's widened. So I'm thinking, I didn't see a lateral, but I am thinking maybe I had a heart attack, and now I have like an enlarged heart. There's fluid around my heart for some reason. Cancer really wasn't the first thing I was thinking. And so I go to the ER, and I could barely talk. Pretty freaked out. Knowing too much, it's kind of bad. But went to the ER, they got an EKG. I look at it, I'm not seeing like ST elevation or any type of EKG changes to think of a heart attack. But still pretty freaked out. I go, they get me back, I get an x-ray. This time I look at the lateral and I see that, so there's an area, it's the anterior mediastinum. It's the area in front of your heart, and mine's whited out. And in med school, they teach you like the 4 T's. and none of them are good. So at that point, I knew I had, uh, I thought I had cancer, and it kind of fit with like all the symptoms. I was kind of suppressing like night sweats the last 5 days probably before that. Uh, just not being able to like go as hard at the gym, uh, and that shortness of breath that just wasn't getting any better. So I go back to the ER, my room in the ER, and I think it takes like a few hours before anyone comes in. And at this point, obviously, like the emotions set in. I know what's going on. They come in, and they were like thinking it might be a like a some type of something I was born with, congenital heart defect or something. And I was like, no, I've had an x-ray before. It's never looked like this. So they wanted to give me a CTA, probably rule out pulmonary embolism. I didn't want it. I just wanted a normal CT. Because I didn't want that contrast, feeling like you're going to piss yourself. But anyway, so you go back for the CT, and they tell you, like, it feels warm, it's uncomfortable, you feel like you're on fire. When they give you that contrast, no. You don't notice any of that, because when they shoot the contrast in, I forget what speed it is, but that's what you feel, is just the extreme pressure of that contrast going through your vein. And you have to have a bigger gauge needle. And in that vein that I have right now, I have a blood clot from where that vein was. I think from the contrast just getting shot in, and it just kills. But the warmth and feeling like you're going to urinate yourself, I mean, it's really not that uncomfortable of a sensation. It's more the shooting in of the contrast at like 1,000 psi. Not literally, but anyway. So I get the CT scan. They're like, you have a lot of blood around your heart and some masses. We think it's consistent with either lymphoma or seminoma, which is a type of testicular cancer, just because the location, age group for the seminoma. So at this point, I've already, before they came and told me the CT results, I already mentally prepped myself that it's cancer, hoping it's Hodgkin's, because I know that's the most treatable form. So I'm in the hospital for about a day. I get a biopsy. So when they do these biopsies, they give you like Ativan and fentanyl, and they have you in like a CT. It's usually CT guided. They numb you up pretty good. It's not that uncomfortable. It is kind of scary if you don't know what's going on. They put like a sheet over your head, but what they are doing is they're numbing up the area. They put this probe that it clicks, and it takes a little core tissue sample. That's what they did for me. Sometimes they can do a mediastinoscopy. They cut up here, go down, check out the lymph nodes from there. But so they got a biopsy on me. It came back classical Hodgkin's. They had to do they normally do like 5 samples. They did 15 for me. We're having a little harder time. But classical Hodgkin's was what I got diagnosed with. Not a specific subtype yet, and I just got my PET results back, and all the lymph nodes that lit up were in the mediastinal area, so about neck down to diaphragm, which is good for staging. They haven't given me a stage yet because of the pericardial effusion, or the fluid around my heart. It kind of complicates things, because it's like, is it local invasion of the I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'll let you guys know when I get a stage from them. But anyway, so about the PET scan, when you're going for your PET scan, it is definitely worse than a CT or an MRI. The tube seems a little bit smaller, I'm not sure, and a little longer. So you're kind of in their coffin size. So if you're anxious, I would recommend taking a Valium. But what they do, they have you come in. You don't eat food other than you drink their horrible tasting barium solution. You come in, they inject you with radioactive sugars. So you're radioactive for a little while, so avoid contact with like pregnant people. No one should come into contact with your fluids, like urine, whatever. And try to stay away from people if you can for a while before you get the radioactive sugar out of you. But you get that sugar, you wait an hour, then they send you back into the PET, and it takes like, I think around 30, maybe a little bit more. My advice to you is, if you're claustrophobic, close your eyes when you lay down and don't open back up. I made the mistake of opening my eyes like midway, and you see that it's just tube. You can't see any openings, and you can't move your arms or above your head. So just keep your eyes closed and try not to think about it, and ask them if you can play music or something. I haven't used that yet, but I think it would help. I almost had to stop it, but I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. So I didn't. Yeah, so that's kind of how my diagnosis happened. I found out on a Saturday and had chemo about a week later. All right, well, thank you guys.